You're watching PIX on Politics Daily with Dan Mannarino.
Hey everybody, welcome to PIX on Politics Daily. It is January 14th. Hopefully everybody's having a great day. Obviously, there is so much happening and so much in the news. Governor Hochul had her big State of the State. Big topic was affordability, right? And so we have the full State of the State now posted on our website, pix11.com. But we today are focusing, and as we have been, on a lot of the congressional races that are happening this year, right? I know everybody thought that political season was going to end in November with a new mayor. But here we are with a governor's race and a lot of congressional races. And in one particular race, it seems like there's a heck of a lot of people running. So Cameron Kasky, who you may know, he was a former survivor of a school shooting. He was running to replace Congressman Jerry Nadler in New York 12, but just today announced that he is not going to be doing that. He's going to drop out of the race. And so that is one less person in a very crowded field. But today I'm talking to Assemblyman Alex Boris, who is running to replace Mr. Nadler, and he joins me now. So great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So a lot of you announced all at once, and now slowly we're seeing some people leave the race. So before I get into the why for you, we have now two people who have announced and have now left the race. What are your thoughts?
I think three, actually.
Three, yes.
Yeah, with Cam going. Listen, democracy is a good thing, and having a bunch of people express their ideas is great. We'll see how many end up at the end, but I appreciate what Cam brought to the race in terms of moving the conversation forward on abolishing ICE, on Medicare for all, and excited to see where his activism takes him in the future.
So why did you decide that this was the time for you to leave the Assembly when there's a lot going on? There's a lot of attention in Albany. We just had the State of the State. Mayor Mamdani is looking to Albany to make a lot of change. And you said, okay, I'm going to run for Congress.
Well, as we were just discussing, I'm a new dad. I have a 5-month-old, and I didn't want my kid to grow up in a broken country. Frankly, the things keeping me up at night, other than my 5-month-old, are not coming from Albany. They're coming from D.C. This is a time where our fundamental rights are at risk, and we need people who are not going to shy away from a fight, but actually stand up not only to Trump, but to all of those people who are enabling him. And that includes a broader conversation about the tech ecosystem and how tech is reshaping power.
Yeah, and so I want to get into some of those things in just a moment, but kind of beginning the conversation with, are you in it till the end? Are you in this race until there's actually an election, or are you going to be another one of those people who say, I'm in it, and then I'm going to leave?
I'm very much looking forward to being sworn in January.
Ah, there you go. Okay. So again, when you look at what's happening locally, State of the State yesterday, was big topic was affordability. Do you believe in a lot of the affordability messages that are happening? Do you think they can happen, and how do they need the federal government to help?
Well, the federal government has far more resources than the state does. And so while we have really important work to do this year in Albany, a lot of it is just protecting the state from the way that Donald Trump and his enablers are targeting us. The federal government is our primary source of healthcare dollars, is our primary source of funding for a lot of really important programs. And we need representatives that know how to actually get that money back to the district. In this past year, I brought $43 million back to my district. It was towards the top of what any assembly member was able to deliver. And I'll be fighting equally as hard for New York 12 when I'm in Congress.
Yes. And just to push back on that, it's easier to do that on a state level than it is on the federal level when you have an announcement just like today where you have the president saying, well, I'm actually not going to send federal dollars to a state like New York because of sanctuary policies.
Absolutely. You need people who are willing to stand up to him and take a hard stance right away. And one of the things I'm sure we'll end up talking about is the dynamics of the race and who's targeting each candidate. And I've been standing up in the face of a lot of heat and a lot of money coming my way. I'll do the same to Donald Trump.
So what do you think of what he said just last night? Kind of, I'm holding federal dollars to sanctuary states. And if you were a member of Congress at this very point, what would your course of action be?
Well, I would first be very clear that he can't extort New York, that we are going to stand up for all of our residents, that we're going to stand up for the rule of law. We'll obviously see him in court. And thank goodness our Attorney General, Tish James, has a very strong track record of winning those fights. But to be clear, if Donald Trump is taking illegal actions to threaten the states, we should be doing everything within our power to reverse that. And that means not approving the people that he is putting forward. That means slowing up everything that is happening in the House and in the Senate. And that is using every course of power, every lever of power at our angle to slow down this authoritarian takeover.
Yeah, what do you mean withholding from people that he's putting forward? You mean withholding
appointments,
approvals for appointments,
procedural votes on just moving the business of the day forward.
But you would need the House to do that. I mean, you would need control of the House as a Democrat to do it.
You obviously can do a lot more with control of the House, and I'm very confident we will have control of the House next year. And I'll be working very hard after the primary to help any of my colleagues running in red to blue races and make sure that we win and get the majority. That will be my focus from June till November. But even so, you can do things like use the magic minute. If you're Speaker Jeffries, you can slow down procedural votes and make sure that they can't move at the speed that they've been doing.
Yeah, you're very interesting. When you got into the race, you said you're the first person to run with a computer science degree.
Yeah.
Why do you think that matters?
Well, you have a phone in front of you. Tech is touching every part
my
of
notes
our
are on my
life.
phone. Yes.
We're on a streaming profile system right here. I mean, tech is touching every part of our lives, and it's only expanding. And there's a lot of things that our government needs to do that, frankly, it's not doing right now. One of the big things is thinking about the future of AI and protecting our kids from invasive tech. And we don't have the experts in Congress that actually understand this. I think this is a big differentiator in this race because, your audience is very well informed. They know that we're probably going to vote the same way 95% of the time, most of the candidates that are in there. And it's very unlikely any of us are going to be the deciding vote on a major piece of legislation. The way a freshman member of Congress really differentiates themselves is bringing an expertise, is bringing a knowledge, is bringing the ability to pass legislation on something that doesn't currently exist in the body. Mm-hmm. I think the question for New York voters is, what is that for every candidate? Yeah. For me, it's quite clear. I've passed the strongest AI safety law in the country. I've really led from the front on tech issues.
So are you saying it's hard to differentiate in terms of voting because you might all vote the same? What does set you apart from a very crowded field?
Yeah, a number of things. I'm the only one that has both private and public sector extensive experience. Mm-hmm. I've been rated by the Center for Effective Lawmaking as the most effective new legislator from New York City. I've passed 27 bills in my time in the state legislature. And I have this background in AI that is unlike anything else. But I'll also say it's a primary in the middle of Manhattan. We're all going to promise to fight Donald Trump. That's obvious. I'm the only one that Donald Trump's donors are fighting back against. So
why?
His largest mega donor, Greg Brockman, along with Mark Andreessen, who gave $5.5 million, Joe Lonzo gave $1 million, Greg Brockman gave $25 million. They've collectively pledged $10 million against my campaign. So we're all saying we're going to fight Trump, but there's only one candidate that his donors are actually afraid of and fighting back against.
There's a lot of talk about the Democratic Party as a whole and where you kind of fall on the spectrum of being far left, being moderate, democratic socialist. How do you identify as a Democrat? And what do you think of the Democratic Party as a whole right now when you look at what's happening around the country?
Well, I identify as data-driven. I think there's certain things that I fight for that are on the left, Medicare for all, abolish ICE. I think there's other things where I come across as more centrist, encouraging innovation and being business forward. But I'll follow the data and I'll change my mind when the data changes. For the Democratic Party as a whole, we should be a big tent party. We should be running people in districts that match what the people in their district feel, as long as you have a unified sense of the rule of law and fighting for making it easier for working people. Now, exactly what that looks like in different areas might change, but our party needs to come together because we have an existential threat coming from Trump and the MAGA Republicans.
Yeah, that sounds logical when you say it and when you look at it.
I'm sorry, I'm an engineer. It's how I think.
But that's not what's happening. I mean, you have far left democratic socialists who are challenging more moderates. And yes, I understand being tent party, but is there a messaging problem within the party?
No, I think elections are how we settle some of these conversations. A democracy is a good thing. I think having more people run is excellent, and we'll let the voters decide.
So you don't think Democrats have an issue or messaging problem on what the big issue is besides Donald Trump?
There's a lot that we can do better. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying this. Primaries is not a sign that we're doing poorly. I think that's a sign that we're doing well and people are motivated and want to get involved.
And the reason I ask all this and have this discussion is because you said you would vote for Hakeem Jeffries.
I would.
To be the speaker, and there's a lot of back and forth on whether or not he should be somebody who should be the speaker. So why do you think he should be?
Well, I think look at just his recent track record, right? The way that he held us firm when Trump shut down the government over trying to take away health care from people. And he said, let's focus on the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Let's make a key point about what Democrats are fighting for. We did. Now that bill's actually passed in the House, which we are having the most successful run of discharge petitions in the minority party actually having a say in policy, certainly in my lifetime. And you'd have to ask historians how far back. obviously anyone could do better at any job. I'm not here to say there have been no mistakes, but I actually think he's been constantly underrated in terms of how he's maneuvering inside Congress.
And some real-time happenings has really put a focus on how you would vote or what you would do as a member of Congress. Obviously, there's an ICE story happening right now, not only in Minneapolis, but around the country, here in New York City.
Yeah.
You had Kristi Noem here just last week saying ICE will remain and that they will ramp up operations. What is your position on how some of these ICE raids are going?
They're horrific. I mean, they are sending untrained thugs into our streets to lock up our peaceful neighbors. I mean, you saw there's a story breaking this morning about how a journalist who has been very strongly covering ICE got a job offer from ICE without filling out the background paperwork. I mean, it is clear that they're not training, they're not screening who they're giving a gun and giving authority. They should be banned from wearing masks. They should be banned from state facilities and city facilities. They should not be taking our police resources that are there to keep us safe and using them on civil enforcement matters. That's the things we can do at the state level. At the federal level, we need to abolish ICE. The safety work that HSI does, the cross-border drug trafficking, human trafficking, that work was done before ICE existed. It can be done afterwards. I'm actually going to use one of Cam's lines, Cam Caskey, who's 25 years old and is older than ICE, right? So we can go back to the rot of ICE has gone way too deep. We need to abolish it.
Kathy Hochul, just last week when I sat down with her, said, "We don't need you here. Get out of the city.
Yep.
We're not leaving the city." So it's part of a New Yorker's reality that they're here right now.
Yep.
What is your advice, I guess, to a New Yorker who is maybe taking the legal option? Look what happened in the city council with somebody who was going to their legal court proceeding and still was detained by ICE. What's your message?
The message is that we need to stick together and do everything we can to fight. If you are an individual citizen, making sure that you are carrying ID and that you're recording when things are happening. Unfortunately, it's not how it should be, but we are going to have to do things to look out for one another. But I think also the important thing, the actual solution, is demand urgency from the people who are in power. I mean, you look at what's happening in Minnesota, where they wanted to investigate the officer, and the federal government just said, no, we're not cooperating. That's a crime. That's obstruction of justice. I would be looking at arresting the people who aren't turning over evidence. Federal agents don't have immunity from state laws when they are acting in a way that disagrees with it, and I think it's time we start taking action.
Yeah, I often get the avoided answer on that question. Should an ICE officer be arrested? Should the one in Minneapolis have been arrested?
There should be a full investigation and an indictment, and I believe in the legal process, but based on my own two eyes, after an investigation, yes.
So as both an Assembly member and potentially a member of Congress, what would your conversations be with Mayor Mamdani, Governor Kathy Hochul about what state police or NYPD should do?
You should be clear on the policies. Now, what we should not do is what Donald Trump does, which he stands up there with the Attorney General and the head of the FBI and names political enemies, right? That is not what I am saying. I'm saying follow the legal process. But if the legal process leads to an agent acting in a way that is against the law, yes, they should be arrested and they should be prosecuted.
When you look at the totality of your district, what would you say, from talking to folks, is the number one issue in your district, not necessarily nationally?
Their affordability affects everyone. Yep. Housing costs are extremely high. We want an increase in the economy. We want an increase in jobs. The infrastructure funding I talked about earlier, our district's one of the highest recipients. You look at the project around Penn Station and Grand Central Madison and 2nd Avenue Subway, a lot of things that we need to fight for. So there's many, many issues. It's a large district. Affordability is one. But just basically following the rule of law and having a country we can believe in is core to that.
There's a lot of talk about redrawing of the lines and what exactly a congressional district looks like. I spoke to Congresswoman Nicole Maliotakis last week, who said, I don't care what side is doing it, it shouldn't happen. So there's a fight right now to redraw some of the lines. Your district not being one of the ones that would be affected, but
although it borders one, so it depends
does,
how it
right?
happens. Yeah.
So and it could change and shift who might be your neighboring Congress member. What are your thoughts on redrawing of lines mid census?
We need a national ban on partisan gerrymandering, and we should fight hard for that. We're also in the middle of an authoritarian takeover, and as Trump is pushing it in other states, blue states can respond in kind. But when we have control of the national conversation—
So you're okay with it happening because it happened already in a red state?
I'm okay with it happening because we're facing an existential threat, and we need to fight back against that. But once we have control again, we should all be quite clear that we should have a ban on partisan gerrymandering.
So that,
and I would say mid-cycle redistricting as well.
Right. But what's to flip the cards and say, if it happens again and say the Democrats are in control, that a Republican can't say, well, we're in an existential crisis, so let's do it.
Well, but we wouldn't be redistricting mid-cycle. We would be passing a national ban on doing just that. I mean, you look at California and New York and all of these states that passed constitutional amendments to require nonpartisan drawing of lines. And the action we're taking now is having to undo that because red states didn't meet that and in fact went the other direction.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a both sides argument.
Gotcha. And I want to conclude on who you'd potentially be taking over for. Somebody who had a long-standing career in Congress, Jerry Nadler. So what do you think of how he was as a member of Congress?
He was a remarkable congressman. He is a remarkable congressman. He's served for now 34 years and I think another 16 in the state assembly before that. And he's given his life to public service, and I thank him for that.
Do you think that it's time, though, across the board for new energy, new blood?
We need a diversity of representatives, and that means in all kinds of ways, including age. That's not to say that everyone who is old and experienced needs to be replaced with someone new, but it's important that we have a Congress that reflects the districts and reflects the country as a whole.
Okay. Assemblyman Alex Boris, I appreciate you being here. Great conversation. Come on back soon, okay? We'll keep a close eye on this race. I got to talk to all of you, and then it's going to take me a couple weeks to do all of you, all right? All right. Thank you again, appreciate it. And don't forget, everybody, I'm sitting down for one of her first TV interviews with the FDNY commissioner. So if you have questions for her, I know a lot of folks have been having a lot of questions for new members of the administration. I'm talking to her on Friday. But that'll do it for this edition of Picks on Politics Daily. I'll see you next time.